You're listening to Mic Drop Moments, a podcast brought to you each week with me, your host, Sandra Garlick. During the podcast, I invite guests to share their amazing stories, knowledge and top tips, including their mic drop moments, especially for you. I also share my learning and inspiration about life, business growth and visibility. I'm delighted to bring the Mic Drop Moments podcast to you each week to inspire and motivate you to achieve. Enjoy the podcast and don't forget to leave a review. Mic Drop Moments is sponsored by Grow Radio. Want to launch your own podcast? Grow Radio are here to help. Grow Radio has launched and supported countless podcasts, and they'd love to do the same for you. Just hit record and they'll handle the rest. No editing stress, no technical faff, just a great podcast released when you want. Need a little extra support? Grow Radio's workshops and courses make getting started easy. Let's bring your podcast to life. Message Grow Radio on social media. Let's make this happen. Welcome to this week's episode of Mic Drop Moments, and today we are celebrating. This episode marks 4 incredible years since I launched this podcast. I can't believe it, 4 years. That's a lot of episodes. What started as just an idea that brewed, and if you listen to last week's episode with Gary Jones, my podcast producer, you'll know that I percolated on this idea for 4 years, 4 whole years before I even launched it, and that was 4 years ago. So I sat on an idea for a whole 4 years, and I'm going to be exploring a little bit about that during the podcast today. So the idea was to share my thoughts, my voice, and to give others a platform. And initially, the podcast started out as coffee chats with my members, and it was an opportunity for them to explore being a guest on a podcast because many had never been on a podcast before. And I wanted to give them a little bit of visibility and put them in the spotlight. And that was why it started. And the idea was somebody could grab a coffee and listen to an episode. And I didn't even do a weekly episode either when I first started, and it was a bit random, but we went for initially monthly, then it went to 2 weekly, but I made the decision I wanted to keep going. I didn't want a gap. It wasn't going to be a season and then stop. So as I said, this episode marks 4 amazing years since I launched, and I wanted to celebrate that and mark it because I think we need to celebrate our achievements, our milestones and all those things and recognize them for what they are. Many people, when they start a podcast, don't get past 3 episodes, so I think 4 years is incredible, and I'm giving myself a huge round of applause and a pat on the back, and I'll probably have a glass of something to celebrate too. So 4 years, tens and tens, probably over 100 guests, hundreds of stories, and like so many mic drop moments along the way, which is one of the reasons why I rebranded it on episode 150 and renamed it. So it used to be called Woman Who Chat, and now it's Mic Drop Moments. But alongside the celebration and everything else, I want to touch upon why I decided to build this into my overall business strategy. And having a strategy in business for growth is absolutely vital. And probably now more than ever, we need to be thinking strategically about visibility, about which direction we're going in, and even about all those visibility opportunities for growth. I've been talking a lot recently about sponsorship and how that can have a huge impact in business growth. And it's part of my strategy too. I'm sponsoring a number of events this season, and I'm not just plucking around thinking, oh, that sounds good, I'll do that. There's strategy, a clear strategy behind it. So whether you're on your morning walk with your water bottle and your dog, or whether you're driving in the car or just tuning in with a coffee, let's talk about planning about momentum and what happens when you show up with purpose. And I think the first thing is to say here that this podcast features heavily in my business strategy. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So it's so easy to fall into business. We start a business, everything's exciting. We see all the shiny objects, we go for them, and boom, we suddenly hit a point and think, where am I going? What am I doing? What am I doing next? And if you don't have that strategy, that plan behind you, you do tend to go off and you're basically winging it and you're running your business on the fly. Doing your social media when you remember, and saying yes to everything that comes along, and constantly having to go back and reinvent the wheel and rebrand and redo everything. And I've learned a lot over the last nearly 20 years of self-employment. It's not the way to run a business. I've made so many mistakes along the way, and I've learned from each and every one of them. And the reason I share my knowledge with you is that so that you don't have to make those mistakes. I can almost shortcut it for you. So let's think about it this way. And I always talk about driving on a journey to somewhere. We might have the odd detour. For example, I was coming back from Nicola Rowley's Impact Live this week, and part of the M25 was closed for roadworks, and Google Maps sent me a completely different random way. But I knew that I would still get to my destination. I had to take a detour. It was necessary. It was planned because my sat nav told me it was planned, but I still ended up at the final destination that I wanted to go. And that's the same in business. We might stop off at a service station. We might get something to eat along the way. In business, we might stop off and do something or tweak something along the way, but we still aim for that destination. And if we don't know where we're going, how are we going to get there? It's okay going on a road trip, but a road trip to nowhere will get you nowhere. A road trip to somewhere will get you to that destination. So things that I've learned, especially over the last 4 years of doing this podcast, is strategy is what keeps you moving when your motivation disappears. I wake up in the morning, and if I don't feel like doing something, I find something on my list. You hear me talking about what will make my boat go faster. I look at those revenue generated tasks and think, okay, I'm not feeling very motivated today. I probably am not up at my normal 200%. But what can I do that takes me one step further? And strategy does that. Because I've got a strategy in place, it helps me to know exactly where I'm going. It helps to keep me aligned when the opportunities come knocking. So when somebody approaches me and say, do you want to get involved in this? Do you want to speak at this event? Do you want to sponsor this event? I look at whether that aligns with my overall business strategy. If it takes me one step further in the direction I want to go, of course I'm going to say yes, if budget and cash flow allows. And my marketing budget is huge because I believe it's by percentage of my turnover, and I believe that you need to speculate to accumulate. If I keep sitting back and don't do anything to grow my business, then it's going to take me a lot longer. And I've found that by investing in the right opportunities, it comes a lot quicker and clarity just comes knocking. And it's what makes the business sustainable, not just successful. It's got to be sustainable. When I went into hospital in April, my business continued to generate income. And that's because of the strategies I've built around it. So it continued to grow. Whereas if I'd taken my foot off the gas and laid up for 4 weeks and did absolutely nothing and had nothing in place, then I'd be in a pretty sorry state. I'm briefly interrupting this podcast to tell you about the Woman Who Solopreneur Awards 2025. They're open to sole traders and sole directors based in the UK. Entries open on the 1st of June. Simply visit womanwho.co.uk/awards. This is your opportunity to share your story, your achievements, and your goals and aspirations for the future. Plus, entering awards is a fantastic way to boost your visibility. Early bird tickets and sponsorship to opportunities are also available. Now back to the podcast. So I like to think about everything shifts when you stop chasing and you start attracting. And that's true whether you're launching a course, speaking at an event, hosting a podcast, building platforms to help others shine. And one of the best strategic decisions I ever made was committing to consistent visibility. And you'll hear me banging on and on about personal brand and visibility. But this podcast is part of that. It's part of my visibility strategy, along with my speaking events, along with the awards and the way I show up online, in person, at events. And it's all part of that visibility strategy. And visibility without a strategy is just noise. It's just saying, buy my stuff. So you need the strategy behind it to know what, and you can learn from it as well in the future. You know what works and what doesn't work. And that's how I build my credibility, attract my ideal clients, and grow my business with intention. There is a plan behind it. So let's look at the podcast itself. And yeah, this is a huge milestone. I'm going to keep mentioning it because when Gary highlighted to me last week that we're celebrating 4 years, I literally couldn't believe it. In fact, I remembered going to his training session in 2017 thinking, oh, I don't really know what this podcasting stuff's all about, but I'm going to do one day. And I kept guesting on other people's podcasts. And then I suddenly thought, this should form part of my visibility strategy, because not only am I using it as a tool to grow my business and my audience, but actually I'm creating the opportunity for other people to do that as well by coming on the podcast as my guests. It's a benefit that's there for my members, for my sponsors. I invite them to come on my podcast. My podcast is invitation only. And it's something special I can share for my members and say, look, if you've never tried it before, this is a safe space to have a go. So I launched it with a simple goal to share the real stories behind business growth. And I think we've shared lots and lots of stories. I've done a few solo episodes as well over the years, but more in the recent times. Initially, it was all stories. It was all conversation. So if you go back to the very, very early days, it's all stories. And not just polished success stories either, the real stories, the challenges, the obstacles, the setbacks, and how people have overcome them. And at the end of every podcast, I've always asked people, what's your piece of wisdom, learning, or top tip you want to share with the audience? And I renamed it your mic drop moment, because that's what they are. They're all mic drop moments. And what I should do is go back and listen to them all and gather all those mic drop moments, because they are absolute gold. I've interviewed predominantly women in business. I have interviewed 3 men, I think, to date. Some great episodes there if you dig around. I think I did an episode with John Cleary, one with Gus Bandal, and also with my podcast producer, Gary Jones. And I'm going to be interviewing some more men coming up as well, because they are part of the business journey and my business journey. I've shared my own experience. I've shared my learning. I've listened to listeners and what their comments have been. But yeah, I'd love to know which has been your sort of light bulb episode that you've listened to. I was at the event the other day and somebody scrolled and showed me an episode that particularly resonated with them. And I love that when people talk about listening to the podcast and tell me that they found a particular episode really interesting. Has it always been easy doing a podcast every week? Absolutely not. Some days, and this is where I've learned to actually block record, I'm much better when I'm in flow. Now, I'm going to tell you something honestly now. I very nearly didn't record this episode. I was so tempted to say to Gary, let's just put a normal episode out, because I am absolutely shattered this week. And then I thought, no, this is a milestone. This is something that's got to be celebrated. So I pulled everything together and thought, no, let's get into the moment. Let's get into why this is such a special episode. There were times when I didn't feel like recording. There were times when I lost my voice and had a frog in my throat and struggled to record. There's been times I've had coughing fits. There's times the dog has barked throughout and I've had to keep pausing and it's been edited out. There are episodes that just didn't resonate with the audience so well. There are others that have blown off the charts. You never know. I've not had any tech issues, touch wood. or timing issues or any life issues, I've very rarely had to cancel a recording or postpone a recording with somebody. It's happened on occasion, but not very often. As I say, I block record them now more often than not. So I've got episodes already recorded now for the next couple of months, which is a great position to be in. It's awful having to scrap round trying to find content for an episode, and I never want to do that. And if you're thinking of launching your own podcast and sitting around and thinking, I'll do it one day, why not make that one day today? And my podcast tends to come from, it starts as a blog, it turns into a podcast and a series of episodes with women that can share stories around that topic, usually, but not always. The podcast itself can turn into social media posts and those sorts of things. And then people talk about it and I get ideas for other content. So it all fits into each other. And my podcast themes follow my network themes, follow my themes for my blog. So everything is planned, everything is strategic. And I'm just working on my 2026 themes at the moment. And they're all on topics that you've said to me you find a challenge, or something that somebody has said, I'm really struggling with that right now. So all the topics are around what you want to hear. So I hope that you find something in there by listening to them. But could you imagine if there was no strategy behind this podcast? If I just jumped on every week and talked about the weather and talked about I've been shopping and talked about everything else. I've bought this today and it's really nice and tasty. You don't want to know all that. Well, you might do. I've had a cookie today, an oat and raisin cookie that I picked up. That was my treat for toddling around at Sainsbury's, which I hate with a passion, by the way. But I don't talk about that stuff all the time. What I talk about is stuff that will help you. I try and bring the topics to you where I can benefit from sharing my learning. So there's always something to chat about on a podcast, and especially when I have a guest. I love digging into their stories, finding out what motivates them, what inspires them, their why, all those things, and what their challenges have been and how they've overcome them. So if you're thinking about a podcast, I'd invite you to just do it. Absolutely. So it brings me on to something I've been speaking a lot about lately, and that's sponsorship. Now, I know sponsorship can sound like a big word and something that's reserved for large companies and budgets, but actually sponsorship is one of the smartest visibility strategies for solopreneurs and small businesses, and I'm going to tell you why. In fact, this podcast is sponsored. It's sponsored by Grow Radio and has been since day one, because Grow Radio sees the opportunity and the benefit and has gained a lot of clients from it. So it's a bit of a no-brainer. And when I'm looking for sponsorship, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be in front of my ideal audience, my target audience, my ideal clients. And that's how I choose my sponsorship opportunities, the things I invest in. But it places your brand and you directly in front of your ideal audience and builds that trust and credibility almost instantly. And if it aligns with your business values, events, and all those things that you stand for. And it's great because the people who do sponsor my events, it's not just about one day in the calendar year. It's about a journey, a partnership, working at something together. Emma Hewitt and I partnered. She's all about helping people enter awards. She helps people enter all sorts of awards, not just mine. But it was a great partnership and it just works. The same with the sponsorship I've got with Grow Radio and other sponsors I have as well. It's all about me showcasing them, but also making sure they're front and center in front of my audience. And when somebody sponsors the Woman Who Awards, they're not just putting their logo on a brochure. They're saying, I back women in business. I support this visibility and I believe in celebrating success. It's strategic. It's part of a marketing strategy, part of a visibility strategy, which is an element in your marketing strategy. You speak to any marketeer and they will tell you marketing is a massive subject and you have these little elements within it, and visibility is one of those things, and sponsorship is part of my visibility strategy. Anyway, if anybody is interested in sponsorship with Woman Who or anything around it, just get in touch. So yes, strategy. having a strategy, having that roadmap, having that direction in which you want to travel, it's so, so important. And it's what's got me here. It's what keeps me here. And it's what will take us all to the next level. Now, I can dig around. I could probably do a year's worth of episodes just on strategy. It's such a huge topic. It underpins every single business. You look at the big corporates and they have massive strategies to support their growth and sustainability. But why shouldn't small businesses have strategy too? We can take what the big businesses use and we can implement it in our own business in a way that supports, that builds those foundations for growth and for scalability as well. So whether you're just starting out, whether you're pivoting, hate that word, or scaling, take the time to pause yourself and say, am I growing by design or by default? Am I just taking the scattergun effect, hoping something will stick? Or am I absolutely knowing where I'm going? I've got a plan in place, I've got a strategy in place, and I know how I'm going to measure that success with markers along the way. And it's no accident that I'm planning my 2026 topics for the podcast right now. Yep, at the time of recording, I am 6 months away from 2026, but I'm planning for it now. So, as always, if today's episode has resonated with you in any way, please share it with somebody who needs it, or a strategic nudge, or a dose of celebratory energy. I feel like doing cartwheels today. I've had such an amazing day. And as I said, at the start of the day, I thought I won't record that podcast, but I've had some calls with different people. I've been having some sponsorship discovery calls. I've had the most amazing online meeting with somebody that's going to lead to an opportunity for me to improve and increase my visibility in a direction you wouldn't even envisage. But I'm going to save that for another episode. So today's all about celebration. Today's about celebrating the 4-year milestone of Mic Drop Moments, formerly known as Woman Who Chat. And here's to all the mic drop moments that are yet to come. Now, it's not an accident that my 200th episode falls at New Year. So there was a strategy behind it, believe you me, and that's why strategy is important, because everything is planned, everything is there for a reason, and everything is meant to happen for a reason. I do believe in the universe, and I believe the universe has a design for each and every one of us, but you have to take action to make things happen. You have to take that first step. So if you want to be celebrating 4 years in your podcast, then get started. Why not? Just do it. So until next time, keep showing up, keep speaking out, and keep creating your own mic drop moments. You've got this, and I will see you all bright and breezy next week. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Mic Drop Moments podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next week for more inspiration, learning, and top tips. Want to work with me on your business growth and strategy, speaking, or simply growing your audience? Just get in touch. Visit womanwho.co.uk to find out how you can start your speaking and visibility journey, or even feature on a future podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's podcast. And if there are any topics you would like to hear, just get in touch with me, your host, Sandra Garlick.